Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Anderson, and I serve as chair of the Arkansas Workforce Development Board. I'd like to begin today's meeting by thanking you all for joining us for this special call meeting. Your commitment, your time, and your steady leadership continue to move our state forward at a moment when workforce systems across the country are being asked to adapt, modernize, and respond to rapidly changing
Unknown
needs.
participant is now joining.
At our last meeting, this board received comprehensive updates from each of
Unknown participant is now exiting.
from our core and optional partners. We walked through the major components of the fiscal year 26-27 WIOA combined state plan modification, including the proposed waiver request and the strategic direction they support. After that discussion, the board voted to open the public comment period, an important step in ensuring transparency, accountability,
Unknown
and
participant is now joining.
meaningful stakeholder engagement. That public comment period concluded on May 18th, 2026. I want to acknowledge the level of engagement we received. We received more than 60 comments, along with several letters of support and several letters expressing opposition or concern. This level of participation reflects how deeply Arkansans care about the future of our workforce system, and it underscores the responsibility we carry as a board. We also recognize that many of the comments focused on questions about the potential restructure of the workforce system. Those concerns are real, and they deserve to be heard and addressed directly. Today's meeting is designed for exactly that purpose. We will discuss those concerns openly and hear the state's response in order to ensure that every board member has the clarity needed to make an informed decision. By the end of today's meeting, this board
Unknown participant is now exiting.
By the end of today's meeting, this board will vote on whether to approve the fiscal year 26-27 combined state plan modification. This is a significant decision, and I appreciate the thoughtful preparation each of you have brought to this meeting. Thank you again for your leadership and for your service to Arkansas. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Today's meeting is being live streamed by the Arkansas Citizens Access Network. We want to thank citizens, elected officials, local workforce board members, and community leaders for your interest and for your feedback. Board members, we ask that you utilize your cameras when available and utilize the raise hand feature when you're ready to be acknowledged for the sake of order. With all that said, let's move forward with our agenda. This time, I'd like to ask the staff to conduct a roll call to determine if we have a quorum. Board members, please respond present when your name is called. For proxy representatives, please respond by stating proxy followed by your name for the record and when you hear your board member's name. Staff, please give us a roll call.
Yes, sir. Governor Sarah Sanders.
Proxy, Mike Rogers.
Sir. Commissioner Joe. Mr. Lynn Blaylock.
Present.
Mayor Ray Bowman. Ms. Karen Brashears.
Present.
Mr. Aaron Chastain. Dr. Terry Cox Meadows. Mr. Miles Crawford.
Present.
Judge Brandon Ellison.
Present.
Mr. William French. I believe I did see him. Mr. William French. We'll keep going. Mr. Randy Henderson.
Present.
Ms. Rebecca Oz.
Present.
Ms. Candace Lawrence.
Present.
Mr. Brian Marsh. Dr. Trinia Miles.
Present.
Mr. George Nunley. Mr. Clint O'Neill.
Proxy Fred Lewis for the record.
Ms. Latanya Robinson.
Present.
Mr. Barry Sellers. Mr. Kelly Sharp,
Present.
Mr. Timothy Thorne,
Present.
Mr. Cody Waits,
Present.
Dr. Ken Warden,
Present.
Mr. Nathan Winter.
Present.
Chairman, I do believe you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now that the staff has confirmed that we have a quorum, I will call the full board meeting of the Arkansas Workforce Development Board to order at 1:36 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge and welcome a new state appointee by position board member, Mr. Nathan Winter, who was recently named the interim director of the Division of Services for the Blind. Welcome, Mr. Winter. We appreciate you being here and look forward to you being on the board. I'd now like to draw your attention to agenda item number 1, the minutes of the March 26, 2026 full board meeting.
Unknown participant is now joining.
You will find the meeting minutes.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Eddie, is there a way we can turn that off? The exit?
Yes, yes, sir. We're exploring that now. Hopefully we can get that settled for you.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are in your agenda book. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Chairperson, I'm sorry, I had my mute mic. There are 2 errors on page 8. You can't carry unanimously and have 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Eddie, can we fix that? We'll make that adjustment to the minutes, Karen. Other than
Yes,
that, are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes? Good catch.
Judge Ellison, motion to approve.
Motion been made to approve the minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second, Rebecca Ives.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Aye.
hello,
Aye.
hello,
All
excuse
opposed?
me. Hello,
All
hello,
opposed?
sir.
Unknown
this?
participant is now exiting.
Chairman, we're working now to rectify that issue.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, any abstentions? The motion passes. At this point, I usually make comments, but I made most of my comments at the beginning of the meeting. So in lieu of my comments, I'll go ahead and pass to Dr. Childers, the Director of Arkansas Workforce Development Board.
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. I want to reiterate the comments that you made regarding the WIOA plan. I want to thank all of the staff and all of the individuals that worked tirelessly to write the plan and then also to make sure that everything was incorporated into the plan, along with those that provided comments during the comment period. I appreciate your engagement and the fact that you are interested in what we are doing at the with the Workforce Development Board and with all of those of you that are impacted and engaged in the board and its functions. So thank you so much for all that you did and the work that you did. Today, I'm going to recognize an individual that's a member of our Workforce Board. On behalf of the Arkansas Workforce Development Board, the staff and its members, please allow me to recognize Tom Anderson on his 25 years of service to the Arkansas Workforce Development Board. Tom actively serves as the chairperson for the Arkansas Workforce Development Board, initially appointed to the Arkansas Workforce Investment Board in 2001 by former Governor Mike Huckabee. Tom also serves as the chairperson for the Arkansas Workforce Development Board Executive Committee and is active in the National Governors Association Board Director Association, currently serving on the executive committee. Tom served 32 years in the U.S. Army, retiring as a colonel. Following his service, he spent over a decade in sales and management positions for major tech firms, including IBM, Lexmark, and Dell, along with over 40 years of experience in buying, selling, and managing real estate in Arkansas. Tom is the president of TA Holdings, LLC, and works as a land agent and consultant for Wellens Land Company, focusing on land and timber investments. In addition, Tom holds key roles in various veteran, military, and educational advocacy groups, including the Reserve Organization of America, Association of United States Army, Arkansas Committed to Education, Boy Scout Executive Board, and Ducks Unlimited. Please help me virtually congratulate Chairman Tom Anderson for his 25 years of service to the Arkansas Workforce Development Board. Thank you, Chairman Anderson.
Thank you, Dr. Childers. Just shows my age, I guess. But thank you for those comments. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Are there any questions for Dr.? Go ahead, Dr. Childers.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to pass it back to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Dr. Childers? Next, I'd like to call on the Executive Director of Arkansas Workforce Connections, Cody Waits, to provide remarks to the board. Cody?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your service and that of everybody on the board. So thank you for all the hard work you all put into the board and into workforce and all the things that you do within your own businesses, your own organizations across the great state of Arkansas. As a time-saving effort, I'm going to be making some comments a little on later in the agenda. So I think we can turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and proceed with the next agenda item.
Great. Thank you, Cody. As we continue with agenda item number 3, I want to bring one of our key education partners, the Arkansas Division of Higher Education, led by board member Dr. Ken Warden, who has been closely monitoring both federal and state legislative activity related to workforce Pell implementation. This is an emerging policy area with major implications for short-term credentials, employer-aligned training, and how we connect education and workforce pathways across the state. It's also important to note that the State Workforce Development Board has a formal role in shaping Arkansas's approach to workforce Pell implementation. Today's session serves as part of the required consultation process, ensuring that the board is informed, engaged, and able to provide meaningful input as the state prepares for upcoming changes. At this time, I'd like to call on Dr. Tina Moore with the Arkansas Department of Higher Education to provide an overview of the anticipated plan, expected timelines, and what these developments could mean for Arkansas learners, institutions, and employers. Their insight will help frame our broader discussion and guide the board's role in the implementation process. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Chairman Anderson. And if I may share my screen. Are you all able to see the slide?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today and letting us come before you on behalf of the governor's office. And in your packet, you have the state implementation plan. But I first wanted to provide some context, because if you just looked at the plan offhand, you might think that we have made it overly complicated and made a lot of bureaucracy in it. But if you give me a chance to go through a little bit with the legislation and the context behind that, I think you'll see that we made a simplified plan as much as possible, giving the requirements in the legislation. So the Workforce Pell Program, most of you are probably familiar with the Pell Grant that has been around for years and years. And many of you, like myself, may have received the Pell Grant. It's a needs-based grant that can help students pursue higher education. Well, the Pell Grant had certain parameters that were only for a length of education that was a little bit longer term, where Workforce Pell was approved in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025 to extend the Pell Grant eligibility to to short-term workforce training programs that met certain criteria. Student eligibility is still based upon need. Now, those with a bachelor's degree are even eligible for workforce Pell, because we know so many folks in the workforce who may have a bachelor's degree because of the changes of technology and AI. Their job may be changing and they need to upskill and pursue a different type of training. So even those folks are now eligible for workforce Pell. This is scheduled to launch on July 1, and the rules for the law were just released this week, day before yesterday. So it's been very fast moving to pull this off. The AHEAD committee met in December following the law being put into effect, as I previously mentioned, and then notice of proposed rulemaking were released for public comment in March through April, and then the final rules were just released, as I said. One thing that's really unique about this is that governors, in consultation with the state board being defined as you all, must approve individual workforce Pell programs and ensure the eligibility requirements set forth in the legislation are met. Additionally, states have purview to design their own review and approval process, and that is what that implementation plan is. So let's look a little bit at what is in the legislation as far as guardrails. Everything that's on these next few slides are decisions made within the legislation and the rules that Arkansas must implement and adhere to. It has to be offered by a Title IV eligible institution, which historically that's who's eligible for receiving Pell Grant funds. It must meet programmatic eligibility for 12 months prior to the governor's certification. So for example, if we accept programs now and certify them in July, they have to have been in existence for 12 months prior to that July date. So institutions can't start a new program and get it on Workforce Pell. They can't tweak programs and get them on Workforce Pell. They have to be exactly in the format, the number of weeks, the number of hours in that format for 12 months prior to approval. Professional skills training programs, that's what we now refer to as non-credit workforce programs. They must be within 150 to 599 clock hours. Once you get to 600 clock hours, that's where regular Pell comes into effect. Credit programs can be between 4 and 16 semester or trimester hours. That's what we typically run on here in Arkansas, not as much the quarter hours. All programs, whether they are professional skills training or credit side of the house, must be between 8 and 15 weeks of instruction. So a minimum of 8, less than 15. They must be aligned with high skill, high wage, or in-demand industry or occupation as defined by the state's governor. And so that is something we did have purview over and something that's in the plan and we will talk about. And it must meet the hiring requirements of potential employers. There has to be evidence of that. Additionally, these guardrails to ensure that learners are entering programs that's going to be worth the investment of both their personal dollars and these federal dollars. There has to be a 70% completion rate within 150% of the normal time of a program. So for example, if a program is a 10-week program, students enrolled in the program must complete that within 15 weeks to be considered a completer. Additionally, there's a job placement rate of 70% measured 180 days after completion. I won't go deep on those next two bullets except to tell you that at the beginning, job placement is based upon placement into any job. In the future, down the road, when we hope that more states will have enhanced wage record capabilities, it will be required that the job placement is in the occupation for which the training was preparing the learner for, or in a comparable high skill, high wage, or in-demand occupation. And programs that fail to meet the 70-70 requirements, as they're referred to, have to wait for 2 years to reapply. Additionally, since the workforce Pell is not a separate pot of Pell money, it takes out of the regular Pell funding. So a student has a certain amount of lifetime Pell eligibility. So because of that, there are parameters that require that these programs count for academic credit should the learner come back and want to pursue additional higher education. Additionally, the programs must provide a recognized post-secondary credential, which is language that you all are familiar with from WIOA. that is stackable and portable across more than one employer, or prepare students for employment in an occupation for which there is only one post-secondary credential. An example that would be that didn't have to stack would be like a CDL. CDL is a standalone credential. There is a parameter in Workforce Pell called value added earnings. And we talk so much, if you talk to Dr. Warden at all, you'll hear him talk about return on investment and the value of higher education. Well, that is what this shows us. And the value added earnings require that the published tuition and fees may not exceed the value added earnings of students who are working, received a Pell Grant for enrollment in the program, and completed a program during the cohort period. You'll have these in your notes, and I won't go too deep in the weeds, but I will show you this one example. This was an example provided by the feds during their negotiated rulemaking. So if we have a college in Arkansas that a completer cohort, and a cohort is 3 years prior to a new year of students, their 3-year median earnings are $25,000 a year. The regional prosperity index for Arkansas is applied to that because in Arkansas, our cost of living is lower. And so because of that, our wages are a little lower. So that prosperity index is applied, and the adjusted 3-year median earnings would be $28,902. The value added earnings formula has you then subtract the 150% of the federal poverty line from that, and you get $7,122. That means that this program must cost less than $7,122. If it's $1 over, the program is not eligible for Workforce Pell. Institutions may reduce the cost of their program to maintain eligibility, but this is something that is a deal breaker for programs if they cost more than that. Additionally, registered apprenticeships were a focus of the Workforce Pell legislation. They automatically qualify as meeting the requirements of high skill, high wage, or in demand, and for meeting the needs of employers. In the legislation, it says that no more than 25% of a Workforce Pell program may be offered by a Title IV ineligible institution. I'll give an example of that. Say one of our colleges down the road is offering a workforce program, but they bring in someone else to help teach it. No more than 25% of that could be that third-party provider. There is an exception for registered apprenticeships that was just released in the final rules, and that has been increased to no more than 50% for registered apprenticeships. Distance education programs, so something that's online, is allowed, but correspondence, study abroad, and competency-based education programs are not eligible, and students cannot receive both Pell and Workforce Pell at the same time. There is an item in there about governors of 2 states entering a bilateral agreement, allowing students located in one state to enroll either via distance education or just to join training at another institution. I like to give the example of ASU Mid-South is literally right across the bridge from Tennessee. And we may have students from Memphis coming over to ASU Mid-South in West Memphis to take workforce training classes. Well, for Workforce Pell, there has to be an agreement between our governor and their governor. We have to be able to get all the wage data from their state. It has to be on the high demand list of Tennessee. So it's a very complex process that has to take place. And for this year, so many states are going to do good just to even implement this in their own state that we are awaiting to look at that in future years and not at this time. The Workforce Pell Program amounts are prorated. So the maximum Pell Grant award, if you were pursuing, say, a bachelor's degree, is just under $7,400 for the current academic year. Well, one of the longer Workforce Pell programs, so one that is the maximum of 14 weeks and 599 hours, someone who qualifies as most in need for a Pell Grant, once you prorate that, they would be eligible for almost $4,000 for that program. If it was the student who is only 10% eligible based upon their income for a Pell Grant, they would receive for that same program just under $400. If we're looking at a shorter term Workforce Pell program, the shortest one being 8 weeks and 150 clock hours, The most in-need student would get just over $1,200, and the student that had only a 10% need would get $123. So you can see that for some of these programs, we're not talking about as much money as people might have anticipated for the short-term workforce Pell, but it uses logic that it would be prorated based upon the amount of time the course takes. So the department did share examples of the types of programs that may be eligible, and they gave examples of nursing assistants, phlebotomy technicians, EMTs, paramedics, CDL, different things like welding, automotive, computer and information sciences, childcare providing. The issue is most of our programs, even if they're within the clock hour parameters, the 8 to 15, less than 15 week parameter is not catching most of our programs. If you look at a CDL program in our state, most of them are not going to be 8 weeks or more. They're going to be more around the 4 week, 5 week length of time, even though they meet the hour parameter. So many of our institutions will have to look and see what makes sense. You know, if you have a full, on the credit side of the house, if you have a full semester program that meets the hour but not the time, because a semester is 16 weeks, 15 or 16 weeks, maybe shaving off just a week of that would make sense, or maybe making it into an 8-week program where someone has just double the intensity of their attendance for the program would make sense. But right now at the state level, we have very few programs that meet all of those parameters. So our tentative next step, pending board approval of the plan, would be to share that plan with providers and a list of approved SOC codes that would be eligible, and we'll look at that in a second. And then training providers would have the month of June to submit their applications. And then June and July, the governor's office, ADHE, and the Department of Commerce will review those submissions. And AR data is consulted to confirm that 70% information we have to have. We don't only have to do that, we have to, in general, plan for it to make value added earnings. We should not submit something that we do not anticipate making value added earnings, even though it won't be calculated for 3 years. In July, the governor's representative, ADHE, will submit a list of programs back to you for your review, because before we submit anything to the feds, it needs to be approved by you all. And then once that's approved, we would send that on to the Department of Education. So now I'm not going to go line by line. You have the plan in front of you. I wanted to provide the context. So when you're looking through the plan and you say, well, why did they do this? You see now it's because it was required in law. The plan is really just, what are we going to set for our high wage, high demand thresholds? And then what evidence must institutions and training providers provide to us that they are meeting those other things? So I'm just going to click through here. I do want to highlight the governance piece because that's very important. The legislation makes it very clear that the governor, in consultation with the state workforce board, serves as the approving authority. So in our state, the Arkansas Division of Higher Education and the Arkansas Department of Commerce, we're working collaboratively on this. We have been part of a National Governors Association work group to develop workforce Pell implementation plans. I've been leading that work along with Cody Waits from the Department of Commerce, along with Dr. Colin Calloway from Arkansas Community Colleges, along with Miss Rachel Lewis here, our data person here at the division, as well as consulting with other folks within ADHE, of course, Dr. Warden, and other leaders here and at Commerce to get it to the point that we are right now. A big piece is looking at the high skill, high wage, or in demand, and looking at that. Let's go on down here. Thought I had the slide on here. We are looking at using the new thresholds that Dr. Childers and her office have come up with for the new methodology, where everything is ranked on the 5-star rating for employment based upon growth, demand, retention, and earnings. And you'll see that outlined in your plan. we are looking at only programs that are 3 or more stars or are 2 stars with a demand threshold greater than 60. Because we know that there are some occupations which the communities really need. It's in high demand, but they're entry-level jobs that may not quite reach that wage threshold. So that is all I have for you. Every other slide is just asking if you have a question about that section. So I will just go on to the end and entertain any questions that you may have.
What are your questions for Dr. Moore?
Dr. Miles,
Hey,
Dr.
Dr.
Miles?
Moore, how are you doing today?
doing well, and you?
Good. I wanted to just follow up because I know you, Colin, and all of us we met. What are the provisions when we talked about the ability to benefit to give individuals without a high school diploma an opportunity to co-enroll in some of those high demand wage courses?
We have not found any additional details on that at this time. It's not something that can't be pursued, but for us, it's a matter of just whether we approve the programs or not, and that's something that's out of our purview. But definitely something worth reviewing. This plan is strictly about approving programs, and then the eligibility piece is outside of our purview.
Okay, thank you.
But we
Dr.
definitely
Miles,
want to
if I
work with
could.
you to make that happen. Yeah, please, Dr. Warden.
Dr. Miles, if I could, I would absolutely support that if it's not breaking the law to do it. The other thing I would say is I think we need to really hone in on trying to figure out how we can do a concurrent credit scholarship for adult education participants. So once they hit that, the same parameters, like if they tape test out at 11th grade or wherever we set, the equivalency, that we could go ahead and co-enroll them so that they follow that IBEST model and your model of completing their adult education while they get on with the career technical education components or whatever components they want. I just think that's good for students. I think it's a retention tool and it'd be good for you and good for us. So we'll always champion that, but I appreciate you raising that question.
Okay, thank you.
Miles?
Hey, yeah, a few questions on this. One of them, can you elaborate a little bit further? I think I'm following, but just for clarity on the value added earnings, how's that calculated?
Sure. Let me go back and I will share these slides with you if you don't already have them. Share my screen again. And just to confirm, this is not a formula we came up with. This is a formula from the feds. So I'll go back to the previous slide here. So it tells us on bullet 2, it's the median earnings of the completer cohort adjusted by the Bureau of Economic Analysis Regional Prosperity minus 150% of the poverty line. So that is your value added earnings. And then the program's published tuition and fees cannot exceed that amount. So when we go to the next slide, for example, if the cohort, the 3-year median earnings of the cohort, so a group that finished a program, then we look 3 years back at a group that finished the program. If their median earnings were 25,000, and we know in Arkansas, the regional prosperity index is 86.5. So we take 25,000 and divide it by that 86.5, multiply it by 100, and that gives us $28,902 for the adjusted 3-year median earnings. From that, we subtract 150% of the federal poverty line value. And when we subtract that, in this example, we get $7,122. So when we get that $7,122, that means the cost of the program's tuition and fees cannot exceed that amount.
So it almost reads when I'm reading earnings as the individual has to earn that above their additional salary, but that's not what it's implying. This is the cost of the program.
The cost of the program, the cost of the program, but it is looking at the earnings of the individual. So it's looking at multiple things. You might have a program, like for example, you might have a program that doesn't produce graduates that make very substantial earnings, I mean, this is a moderate earnings here, 25,000.
Yeah,
so, it's not making huge earnings, but as long as the cost of the program is low, it's not going to kick it out. it's going to be an issue if a cost of a program is high and you have low earnings, or
So
you might
this-
have
this
high
metric-
earnings, but if the, go ahead, I'm sorry.
This metric is really just to make sure that the ROI for the cost of the program checks out more than anything.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I'm assuming, you know, if some of the criteria is high skill, high wage, 25,000 is not even a number that we're really going to be entertaining through this program.
Correct. And I will show an example. Stop sharing my screen for a second, and I will bring up, I don't know if y'all have had a chance to see yet the high skill, high wage, and I don't want to steal the thunder from Dr. Sharice's children's office, but this is something that they had given me permission to share, and I shared it with some of our institutions. So
Miles, I think the Fed overcomplicated it by that methodology, but I think it's fair to say that our program costs are going to be well below what the federal threshold is for any of these
Yeah.
short-term programs at least at our public colleges and universities. So they're just trying to mitigate people from gaming the system to charge exorbitant
Yeah.
prices for something that's not going
Sure.
that leaves people in no better shape than they were when they started.
And I'm a fan of the period links. I mean, we've got a plethora of CDL training programs. That's not what we need to be investing in. Sort of the window is going, to your point, you know, with the 4 to 6 week CDL, typically somewhere in there, is going to push this towards more, hopefully, new training programs that maybe aren't as prominent. Do we have any idea of what those occupations are we targeting specifically? Do we have employers lined up? Do we have an idea of what we might see some occupations being invested in with this?
Well, if I can be, and not to Dr. Moore, is it okay if I comment on this?
sure.
We appreciate the Fed and their recognition and investment in short-term training. The way we wrote this, as Dr. Moore mentioned, as simply as we could around all the bureaucratic requirements that were in this. So we're not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I think that the way it's currently written, it's not going to change much in higher education or with our, Title IV approved institutions. I think as it matures and they see the problems with it in, 2 years, 4 years from now, we're going to see this program grow to be much more effective. As it's designed right now, I don't think it's going to do much for anyone just because of the restricted nature. And before I stop talking, I want to appreciate Dr. Moore and all of her work, because we've come a long ways in just a very short period of time to get this all approved in front of you all and through the governor's office and through with our partnership with Cody and his team has been very important. Been a lot of work in a short period of time to get it to where it is. And it is us meeting the federal requirements. So I think it's going to get better, but back to where I started, I don't think it's going to do much for us in the short run.
Okay.
So regarding targeted industries, there's not a specific targeted industry. What we're targeting is our definition that you'll see in your papers there on page 3. On page 3, where it says program eligibility determination, Arkansas's 5-star methodology. So the new methodology is a 5-star rating based upon demand growth, earnings, and retention. And that goes into effect July 1. And if we look, we'll have a dashboard like this that we can, and this data is not, this is just example data. This is not the data that we're using. But for every single SOC, we will have, or standard occupational code, for every single standard occupational code, we will have a star rating between 1 and 5 stars. And we will also have individual scores for demand growth, retention, and earnings. We propose that we only do for demand or high wage, high skill, or in demand, that our definition be 3 or more stars qualifies. There is, when you dig into the methodology, you'll see that to be 3 or more stars, you have to make a certain earnings threshold regardless. And then to allow programs that have a demand score of over 60, even if they are a 2-star. You, from time to time, will have some community value programs that would fall under that category. So that is how we're targeting programs, is by that wage threshold. And when you
the last one
go-
I had, and I'll mute myself again here, but do we have any idea how many Arkansans this is going to be able to help in say a given year or a program period or anything like that?
I would say we don't at this time. I mean, we could look at how many people use the Pell Grant or how many people follow those income thresholds, but it's really a matter of eventually getting some programs on this list, which I will show you this. This is an example of something that I showed some of our institutions. I just pulled welding programs on the credit side. This is not on the professional skills training side. This is on the credit side. These are all different welding programs at different institutions. These are certificates of proficiency in welding. And like I told them, even if it qualifies with the number of hours, and even if you made it 8 weeks instead of the full semester, so you got it to qualify, at the end of the day, you're saying that someone will get a job from this and that an employer will hire them for this. So sometimes things may be broken up and you can't tell a whole lot just by looking at the title. But if someone just takes a 6-hour class in arc welding, are they going to get a job? Are they, are 70% of those folks going to get a job? And is it going to, the value added earnings, I'm not worried about that because our price at our institutions is so fair that that's not going to be an issue. But just because there are programs out there, does that program stand alone to get those results? Sometimes you might need to combine a MIG, a TIG, a GMAW, and SMAW. And I just, it was just fun to say that. So I just had to get that out. But just because we have all these programs does not mean all these programs would apply to be on Workforce Pell necessarily. Sometimes the programs will need to be repackaged to make more sense. But
Miles,
that's just an example.
Miles, this program sounds great. It's not going to affect very many people because there's really, to the benefit of the student and to the institution, they're going to enroll people in standard Pell Grants. And if they finish early and get on with their life before they finish the degree that they started out with, that's what they've been doing, even though a student may be just getting their welding certifications and going to work and not completing an academic degree or associate degree. Declaring that degree and working toward it has always yielded them federal Pell, even though it's not workforce Pell. What's going to have an impact in this is our change to the state scholarship on Workforce Challenge. So the Workforce Challenge scholarship going from $800 to $3,000 is less restrictive than Workforce Pell, and I think you're going to see some progress and some students served with Workforce Challenge. That's the state scholarship. I don't think Workforce Pell is going to have a significant impact until it is changed and less restrictive.
Okay.
And I'll get to you, Dr. Miles, just 1 second. I just want to add, when I looked at our programs, even though on the credit side, we had 737 programs that were between 6 and 15 credit hours, and on professional skills training, AKA non-credit, we had 93 courses or programs that were between 150 and 599. Out of those, like maybe one met the week criteria, the instructional week criteria. So that's why I'm saying, and they can't tweak them. When we were at NGA, I asked a question of the Department of Labor and Department of Ed people in front of everyone. I was like, well, what if you take a program and you're just changing it by this, 1 day, which shaves off a whole week, because instructional weeks are defined to include even, 1 day during a 7-day period. And they said, even if it was tweaked just by 1 day and it made it 1 less week, it doesn't matter. It has to have been exactly like that for a year. So, yes. So that's a limitation. And then just lastly, to Dr. Warren's point, when I shared these numbers earlier, and he's mentioning Workforce Challenge, with our Workforce Challenge covering 1,500 for programs up to a certain threshold and up to 3,000 for programs that are 180 hours or more, it would not behoove someone to go through all these hoops for the Workforce Pell when Workforce Challenge is not as restrictive on the institutions or the student. So Dr. Miles?
So quick question. So the professional skills training has now taken the place of the non-credit. So in the past, sometimes non-credit was not a stackable credential. It ended with it didn't count for credit. So did I understand you correctly to say that now the professional skills training need to lead to a stackable credential that can be for credit?
If they want it to be on a Workforce Pell eligible program list, yes. So to offer professional skills training, you absolutely do not have to do that. If you are at one of our institutions and you have an industry partner that has a demand and you spin up a program, that's great. You do, what your local region needs, what that workforce demand is. And although it would be great if it stacks and it'd be great if it articulates, that's wonderful. It's not a requirement by the Division of Higher Ed. To be on the workforce Pell eligible program list, it is required. Good
Thank you.
question. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Dr. Moore, Dr. Warden, thank you so much. Looks like a tremendous amount of work has already gone into this, and we look forward to for more to come from y'all. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, before we move into the board discussion, we're going to begin with a comprehensive summary of the public comments received during the comment period. As I mentioned earlier, we had more than 60 submissions, along with several letters expressing both support and opposition. We have a clear understanding of the themes, concerns, and recommendations that emerged. At this time, I'll turn it over to the state team to walk us through these comments and provide the state's responses, including clarification around the questions raised about potential restructuring. Once that overview is complete, we will open the floor for board discussion so that the members can ask questions, seek clarification, and deliberate before we move to a final vote on this plan. So, state team, the floor is yours.
Chairman, if I can, excuse me just for a minute. Dr. Moore reminded me that we need to take action on that last agenda item. And so if we could go back to the agenda item and take a vote on the board supporting that implementation plan, we would propose doing that.
That'd be great. I didn't know we were going to have to take action on it, but we'll definitely do it. So
sorry about that.
That's all right. Do I hear a motion to approve the plan as presented? Miles, do you have a question?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, just real quickly, I would like them to phrase the specific item, if they wouldn't mind, just for additional clarity here on what we are voting on.
I think we're voting on the proposed plan that was just put, the parameters that was just put forward, Miles. Is that correct, Dr. Moore?
It would be on the packet that you have that starts out with the executive summary and has all the details in it. It's in your packet. That's the implementation plan.
So that's what we're voting on, is the implementation plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
we'll come back with a list of programs once this has been applied.
Okay, the motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second, Trina Miles.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, I'll turn it back over to the state team, and we can talk about all the discussion that we had around the open period.
And
Yeah,
we'll
thank you,
yield to
Mr. Chairman. And
Eddie, are you up, or who's
no, I was going to yield to Director Waits this time, and then we'll come in after him.
okay?
perfect. Yep. Didn't want to talk over anybody again there. Yeah, thank you all. So, just a quick point of clarification and something that was released prior to this board meeting, but between the last one. One of the things that has been historic, here at the federal level and across the United States is, the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Labor announcement of the, historic expansion of WIOA combined state plans. This year alone, 21 states have now submitted combined WIOA state plans. And if you look at that compared back to 2024, it was just 9 states. And so while we have not submitted our state plan yet, we expect to be number 22. And so a big shout out to USDOL for the work that they've done, but also to our state teams and our partnership with the Department of Education, that of Higher Education, Ross White with Career and Technical Education, and obviously the team here at Workforce Connections. So just a quick bit of, recapping to the board. Some of you you obviously heard this at our board meeting back in April, but obviously there's an audience that's maybe listening to this for the first time. So we want to make sure we take some time and kind of go through again what the vision of this was, which was really to, put out a transformative vision for a unified, efficient, combined, and demand-driven workforce development system that reduces administrative complexity, maximizes public investment in direct services, and strengthens our overall alignment with employers and career seekers alike. Obviously grounded in the principles of the governor's workforce strategy and America's talent strategy for building the workforce for the golden age and its 5 pillars, and the flexibilities provided through USDOL TEGL 0725. Again, this plan advances a bold restructuring of governance, service delivery, and educational alignment and business engagement. Just yesterday, for just the group, Nathan Winter, who was called out earlier as the interim director for the Division of Services for the Blind, we presented their portion of the state plan to the board, who approved or reviewed that plan to proceed. So we've made some strides there as it relates to the VR piece of this being a part of the comprehensive state plan. But the key pillars of this for us, right, and as we discussed in April, really our system transformation towards a no wrong door model, streamlining governance and reducing that administrative burden, strengthening statewide oversight and accountability, expanding virtual and remote service delivery, utilizing AI, modernizing performance reporting, data integration, and supporting innovative service delivery models and employer partnerships, education and workforce alignment towards a unified career pathway system. As you heard Dr. Moore mention just recently, right, the ability to align programs with in-demand occupations using updated labor market methodologies developed by Dr. Childers and the Workforce Policy and Innovation team. We just heard about leveraging Workforce Pell, not to be confused with Workforce Challenge. WIOA Title I Youth, WIOA Title IV, SNAP, OSD, all the other federal and state funded initiatives to expand access to high quality training, embedding career and technical education coordinators and career coaches into our business services team. All these factors kind of tie into the education and workforce alignment aspect that we're seeking through the state plan. Business engagement, we've been talking a lot about business engagement lately. Unified industry facing approach, right, with the realignment of the existing business resource division to Workforce Connections, rebranded as Arkansas Industry Connect, really serves as a single point of contact for businesses, replacing multiple disconnected outreach efforts across agency divisions and across the state, reducing kind of the employer fatigue caused by those fragmented engagements. This allows us to provide consistent coordinated messaging and services, enhancing responsiveness to industry needs, and better coordinating as a true business partner across all of our different organizations within Workforce Connections. Service integration, right, improving outcomes through the organizational realignment, fiscal stewardship, probably one of the biggest items that's on this agenda today and has been across all the divisions within Workforce Connections and really all of government, not just at the state level, but federal level as well. Trying to figure out that central theme of this plan is really the intentional reduction of administrative and operational costs across the workforce system through governance restructuring, program integration, organizational alignment, right? We're redirecting resources where they have the greatest impact in serving individuals and supporting businesses, and always trying to keep the consumer in mind, the individual, the Arkansan, and the business in mind in terms of where our funds should flow and how we need to prioritize funds for training, supportive services, and business opportunity incentives and things of that nature. And then lastly, obviously the alignment with America's talent strategy and the governor's workforce strategy. Collectively, obviously, these strategies advance the 5 pillars of America's talent strategy in alignment with the governor's workforce strategy. These strategy priorities, as you can see on the screen, have direct alignment across all of those different areas, whether it's modernization, increased performance, career pathway access, and alignment across systems, not to mention apprenticeships and the role that we're playing in apprenticeships and the growth that we've seen over the last handful of years, 140% growth, I think, over the last 6 to 10 years, 4% growth year over year last year in apprenticeship, managing the manufacturing apprenticeship incentive fund for the entire United States. We have a lot of great momentum headed in this direction, and this alignment between the Arkansas workforce strategy and America's talent strategy certainly indicates that. If you could go to the next slide, please. So some of the conversations recently have been kind of what does this proposed look like? And here shortly, I'm going to turn it over to Eddie and Angela to kind of talk through some of the whys and obviously get through the public comments and have some discussion on that as well as the responses that were provided. But one of the things that people have been asking is what does this proposal look like and how does this maybe make some impact? So some of you or most of you have probably seen a document similar to this that kind of shows the existing structure of how the funds flow from Department of Labor to the state, to chief elected officials at local areas, and then to local workforce development boards, right? And so this kind of just highlights as an example of what this newly proposed model would look like in terms of the governance and how the funds would flow and how the operating and how the kind of the entire workforce system would function. And so just wanted to highlight that for you all. Obviously, you know, the chief elected official piece is not in here, but certainly we'll continue to operate the one-stop delivery system as the Title I service provider, state board staff, and fiscal agent. And then there would be a procurement for the one-stop operator aspect of it, which is something that would have to be done. And certainly, you know, I know there's probably some questions there, but we'll try to hold questions for a little bit. If you could go to the next slide, please. And again, just as a refresher, right, you know, some of the big topics that we had discussed back in April when we were talking about the state plan and kind of the structure and the operating model that we're under today, you know, with 11 administrative entities really moving to one, again, tying back to kind of the overall vision of the state plan and being more efficient and more effective, fiscal stewardship with those funds, and how do we put more money towards training and supportive services, reducing that administrative burden, 10 planning regions to perhaps a single region, right? 11 sets of performance accountability to a one accountability structure, removing kind of the different sets of board policies that are currently existing across the state while similar, right, but moving to one state wide policy. Currently, there's 208 board members across the state, moving to a single board structure where the state board would function as the local board. Streamlined service delivery across all workforce centers, creating efficiency and reducing of that administrative burden, creates that path to the no wrong door approach that we've been talking about a lot lately, with Department of Human Services, across workforce connections, education, veterans, National Guard, trying to figure out all the different pieces in alignment with the subcommittee on workforce development and the work that's being done in the legislative body with that group. Virtual after-hours service delivery and what does that look like? And again, kind of providing that consistent customer experience through unified onboarding and training, and then greater agility to respond to economic and labor market shifts. Potential, you know, future things that are still out there at a federal level with reauthorization of WIOA, future, you know, requests to perhaps move funds from across programs in a block grant type style. So all those things are still future, but this is kind of just a reminder of where we were at today. And then current funding level was $16 million that we receive. You know, right now we're passing down about 14 million of that to the local areas. And again, when you start thinking about what our proposal looks like with $7 million available for oversight, compliance, labor exchange, case management, all these different things, we estimate that, you know, roughly $9 million of that would be available for skills training and supportive services, 56 of that towards training and supportive services, 44 towards operational expenses. And again, all right, like this is the starting point. This is not the end point. The goal is to continue to reduce that operational piece and increase that training and supportive services piece. But right now, you know, obviously we're spending roughly around $2 million of that 14 million on training and supportive services and not serving as many people as we can. We think by through this process, we'll be able to increase those numbers dramatically. Next slide, please. So I think I'm going to turn it back over to Eddie now, just to kind of talk through what the waiver requests are one more time as a refresher, and then we'll dive into probably some different slides as it relates to some of the whys around these decisions again. And then we'll, I believe Angela or Eddie will be talking about the responses to some of the comments and going through some of the comments that were made over the 30-day public comment period. Thanks, Eddie.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Mr.
Director
Chairman.
Wade. Thank you, Director Wade. Yeah, so on your screen is just a list of all of the waivers that were submitted as a part of the PY 26-27 combined state plan. Of course, one of the ones that has gained and garnered most attention is the first one. State board functions as local board. That was just explained in depth by Director Waits, and a lot of the other waivers just accompany those or complement that particular waiver. And so, state plan will act as the regional plan. Right now, the way it exists, each local workforce development area and region has their individual plan. There will be one plan built out that would encompass the full state, but it will still include unique characteristics of each local workforce development area. And so things like labor market information, particular needs, and so forth will still be addressed on a local workforce development area, although it will be one comprehensive plan. And then you can see the other waivers that are there that we presented, a few times before, but they're on your screen there just for reference. A lot of questions asked about how can we do this, and is it legal, and do we have the authority to do it? And so we just want to reference that, make reference to WIOA section 189 that gives the Secretary of Labor the authority to waive certain provisions of WIOA Title I subtitles. There are things that cannot be waived, including eligibility, equal opportunity grievance stuff like that. But anything that can be considered an impediment to the success of a state, including things like the way states are structured or the way we operate under local workforce development boards and so forth, can be waived or can be submitted. States can submit a waiver request for those things to be waived there. And so just a code there, federal reference, to show that this is legal, this is allowable, and we do have the authority and the blessing from DOL and other parties to move forward with waiver authority. Next, we'll shift into a little conversation about the why we're doing this. We're going to hone in on our current funding levels, and then we're going to also look at a few slides that'll show some data of how we've been performing in the past and what we hope to achieve in the future. And then we'll slide into more information about the public comments and so forth. So I think I'm going to tag in my colleague, Angela Cook, at this time. Angela?
Thank you. So I'm just going to move through these kind of quickly. This slide shows us the funding levels for WIOA Titles 1 and 3. You can see the breakdown, adult, youth, and dislocated worker for the past 3 years, plus the projected for the upcoming program year 26 in that last column. That Title I totals line item, you can see it's been relatively flat funded, a little bit of variation through the years, but pretty level. Same thing with Wagner-Pizer, which is the Title III, and then the totals at the bottom, you can see we have around 20 to 21 million each year combined funding. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows us the data trends for statewide percent operating expenses and number of enrollments across programs. And so you can see the overall trend is over the last 3 program years, the percent of operating expenses has increased. So we're spending more on operating expenses than training and supportive services statewide. But our number of enrollments has decreased over those same 3 years. So not really the trend that we would like to see, but there's the data and the breakdown for each local board across the bottom of your screen. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows us a comparison to a couple of other states that are similarly situated economically. Our workforce policy and innovation team gave these, Mississippi and West Virginia are the 2 states. They have a similar GDP per capita, unemployment rate, cost of living index, and industry mix, similar to Arkansas. And you can see there the enrollment numbers for PY24 of the WIOA programs. Arkansas has 1,299, Mississippi 11,725, and then West Virginia at 2,753. And then you can see each of the charts breaks down by program. That is for each of the 3 years. Arkansas is represented in the blue bar, Mississippi is the orange bar, and then West Virginia is the gray bar. And we understand there may be other factors at play causing some of the variance here. This is just to give you guys a little context. We get a lot of questions about how do we compare to other states. And so this is just for context and comparison purposes. Next slide. So this slide gives some of the most common or most impactful monitoring findings that we've had statewide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just want to bring your attention to that first one. In 3 separate monitoring reviews in the last few years, the U.S. Department of Labor found that 3 of our local boards were not conducting all the required functions. And so we have worked with them through the years to bring them back into compliance and make sure that they were all functioning as intended. But there has been a history of, issues like that. Some of the other bullet points just cover things like disallowed costs for less than arm's length lease transactions, not consistently obtaining their financial or program monitoring of the service providers, not obtaining the single audits in a timely manner or having 1 or more outstanding at any given time. And then some trouble getting the required agreements together, like subawards, multi-role agreements, things like that. And then the last bullet point, not providing the required follow-up services to youth participants. And now I think I turn it back over to Director Thomas to go over the public comments.
Thank you, AD Cook. Yeah, and we just want to take a few minutes to kind of just give an overview or summary of the public comment period. Again, in compliance with state law and federal law, we did honor the 30-day public comment period. During that period, we and before and after even this meeting today, we will continue with stakeholder engagement activities. Amongst those activities, we will be and have talked to some local workforce development boards, some different associations. We've reached out to organizations like the State Chamber, Municipal League, and so forth to ask for them to share information about what's happening with the state plan in order to bring awareness to what we're doing. And then we do have a few CEO meetings, chief elected official meetings scheduled for June, and hopefully into the summer we can do more with local elected officials to make sure that they understand what's happening, what we're proposing, and to get their buy-in and input on how we should move forward with what we're proposing here. But during that 30-day public comment period, we received 61 public comments online through a portal, 8 letters of concerns, and some of those were repeated in those comments, and then 3 letters of support. In addition to that, we've had a lot of verbal letters of support, and then we also have a official support from the governor's workforce cabinet for this proposal. When categorizing and kind of looking at some of the concerns, again, there were several pages that are now available on our website that you can look at there. They kind of list each response, each comment, the state's response, and any other applicable information that goes along with that. You can find on our website, but we categorize those into 6 different concern areas, and then we're going to go through just a few slides and talk about how we respond to some of those and just give more context on why some of the decisions are being made and kind of what we're thinking in terms of moving forward. But those 6 categories are reduced employer responsiveness and local economic strategy, loss of local control, lack of rural access to services, reduced number of physical locations, lack of local and stakeholder consultation, and potential loss of local staff jobs. These are the things, again, that we received comments that we received on concerns for that we addressed through the public comment period. The first category, reduced employer responsiveness and local economic strategy differences and loss of local control. Again, there was a lot of conversations and a lot of myths about the model that we're proposing. The state, Arkansas Workforce Connections, Arkansas Department of Commerce, does not foresee a model where we deliver all services from Little Rock or from Central Arkansas. All services will continue to be provided in each community, and those services will be provided through a network of team members who live and work in those communities. And so local workforce centers now are operated and manned and managed by individuals who live in the communities that we serve, and that won't change. And so while we are centralizing a lot of the administrative functions, a lot of the service delivery components will continue to happen in those communities. Just looking at a few others there were concerns about not having enough voice or input from elected officials and members from those communities. We hope to have and set up what we call regional stakeholder meetings periodically through the year, where individuals are able to come and they're able to share and express their concerns about what's happening in their communities, and to provide real-time data on things that are happening there These will be included in what we're calling regional business councils that we'll talk about just a little bit further on the next slide. But we do plan to still have a robust system in place for individuals from local areas, including local elected officials, community leaders, chamber execs, and so forth, to still weigh in on what's important in their community. And we plan to present labor market information, a lot of data that affects that area, and build a lot of our strategies based on that. But again, the state does not have any intentions of trying to operate a model where we feel like everything's happening from a central office level and not specific to each local different area. And again, the state board, the way it's comprised now and the way it will be comprised, are representative of individuals from across the state. And so we have 10 local workforce development areas that will all remain intact. What we're proposing is that the boards would go away, but the local workforce development areas will stay intact. And so as Governor Sanders is appointing individuals for this board, the recommendations that we will give and what she and her team would do was to make sure that each area, each local workforce development area was still represented and they still provided voice and input to what's happening in their area. Talked a little bit about the regional business councils. This particular piece is pretty abstract right now. And a lot of comments talked about, well, how will you do this? What would it look like? How will you operate? And the easiest answer to that is that we don't know all the answers yet. We want to work with the CEOs. We want to work with local workforce development boards and community leaders and so forth to build out what regional business councils will look like. And so they'll have, by our definition and by our proposal, there'll be a few functions that we know they would serve. They will be ambassadors for the region. They will provide insight to what's happening in their areas by giving analysis and particular I guess, observations on what's happening. Employers will tell us exactly what they need, and then we'll identify skill gaps and so forth. And so there are a list of things that we can identify early on as things that we know we will want those regional business councils to do, but we want to work with elected officials to figure out who should be, on these councils and how often they should meet and what should their roles and responsibilities be. And so those are action items for us. Again, we plan over the summer months to have some CEO meetings where we're sitting down and kind of walking through some of these items that we just mentioned. And a few considerations, we also, I'll actually lend to Director Waits, if you're still available, I'll lend to you to talk just a little bit about leveraging some of our existing networks with industry associations and other groups that already do this thing. So I'll yield to you for that particular bullet.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, the one thing we do know is that there are a number of existing workforce development, councils, committees across the state of Arkansas, whether through chambers of commerce, whether through EDOs, whether through two-year colleges or four-year universities, other industry associations, right? We've had conversations with Healthcare Association. I've met with the Trucking Association, obviously met with Associated Industries of Arkansas, and separately have also visited with chambers of commerce about this and other local businesses, and asked them, would they be interested in serving on these types of councils? And the resounding answer is yes. And so, to Eddie's point, while we don't necessarily have 100% of it fleshed out, we do know that the infrastructure exists, and we do know that there is support for an engagement, the willingness to engage in these types of advisory councils, business councils, kind of workforce councils, whatever language it is that we end up using. But the system, will continue to operate and will continue to have a local voice and be representative of businesses in local communities. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you. Okay. A couple more concerns there that we'll list. Again, these are based on categories or themes that we saw in some of the public comments, was lack of rural access to services and a reduced number of physical locations. Again, I talked a little bit earlier about the 10 local workforce development areas still being intact. We use a formula funded methodology to determine so DOL uses a formula funding methodology that comes down to the state, and then the state takes what's allotted to our jurisdiction, and then we break that out by the 10 local workforce development areas. And there are different criteria and different factors that go into that, including geographic population, unemployment rates, and so forth. But that will not change. Those will still remain intact. And so if I am the local workforce development area South Central, then South Central will still receive its allotment, and the services that are provided in that area will have designated funds that have to be spent in that area. There is a provision, or there is a waiver where we talk about moving funds across local areas. That would only happen when one area did not utilize all of their funds after 1 year, or if those funds weren't obligated for participants in that area. And so what that might look like, if there was not a lot of activity in the South Central area, and I'm making these up, in the South Central area, then, and there was a great need and West North, then we would shift that money to that area just for specific activities or demands based on the need. It wouldn't be just haphazard where we would shift funds just because we wanted to. There would have to be a demonstrated need in the area for us to shift funds. But again, it will be after a period that of a year or so where those funds weren't obligated. And so local elected officials have the assurance that, you know, their participants, their constituents and residents will still be served in the same manner, but in a manner that's actually going to be more with the funds being shifted from less overhead and duplicate to services and so forth. They're going to be approximately about $6 million available for our residents and constituents to receive services on a greater level. And that can include things like supportive services, training services, and so forth. And so that's something that we think that is the biggest sale of all this. We think that those efficiencies and those impact will be why we would want everyone to support this. But again, there are additional bullets there to talk about, again, our impact, and we respond specifically to each of those areas of concern there. There's no plan to close any comprehensive workforce center locations. In fact, looking at the map that we currently serve now, there's about 23, 24 certified American job centers, or what we call Arkansas workforce centers. We hope through this model to increase that number of actual entry points into our services by partnering with adult education centers and ARS centers to certify some of those sites as Arkansas workforce centers and be entry points. And so again, just working through a network of more affiliate centers, not being bogged down by those rules of comprehensive centers where individual programs have to contribute a certain portion and so forth. We have to go through this certain process with MOU and IFA, which will remain intact, but we won't have those rigid rules to where each partner has to contribute a certain amount. The affiliate model will give us more flexibility to have centers where with certain partners, certain programs representing all of the programs in all of our networks. Looking at that, a lot of people have asked also about our staffing model and how will we carry this out through the state level. Arkansas Workforce Connections will become the service provider for Title I and Title III. We wouldn't identify our services as Title I and Title III. Those staff will be integrated into a model where they worked the system based off of what was needed. And so we would have a team of individuals that would cover job seeker services, or the orientation and intake process. Those individuals would be on site in local workforce centers and communities working in our workforce centers, and they'll have the functions of doing some of the things that are listed there. Initial interviews, assessments, job fairs, recruitment, and so forth. Enrolled individuals into Launch, into Hope Hub, and into AJL, into those systems that we use for labor exchange. There will be a small team of eligibility specialists that will be centralized. That team will be strictly designated or have a responsibility of doing eligibility for not just WIOA Title I and Title III, but some of our older programs. In our last meeting, we talked about a reentry grant that we're seeking. In the event that we are successful in getting that grant, this eligibility team will be skilled enough and qualified enough to look at the laws and the regulations and be able to determine individuals are eligible for programs and then shift them out to the next phase of the team, which would be the case management team. And so case managers wouldn't have the complex role of having to do eligibility. By the time an individual will reach the case manager, they will be deemed eligible, and then case manager can really work on intensive services like assessments and building individual employment plans and individual service strategies to make sure they're addressing any barriers and making sure they're providing the support services and job placements that they need. And so, again, these are three major services that'll kind of take on the Title I. Again, we would grade our funding so that Title I staff and Title III staff could do that. That is something that right now can't be done. The way the law is set up now, Title III staff cannot provide services for Title I and vice versa. Title I staff cannot provide Title III services because they have to be merit or state staff. And so with us being the state workforce agency, we're able to do that grading and integration that wasn't able to be done through local workforce development boards. But again, if you look, all these services and all of these positions are local services that will be on site. And we would also use our virtual Connect center where services would be available virtually, but we will not abandon the in-person model that we know a lot of people still need. In addition to those positions, we already have in place regional outreach coordinators. These individuals are assigned to really lead a lot of our business engagement efforts. These individuals will also provide support to those regional business councils that we talked about. And so during those meetings, we would utilize our regional outreach managers to make sure they were bringing data and information that was going to be important to inform those individuals to make decisions and to roll information and their recommendations back up to the state board. But those individuals are in place now. We would look at possibly expanding the number of individuals we have in their role. But again, those individuals will be on site and they will travel and cover different regions. In addition to that, we'll have program operations staff. And those will be, again, individuals that will be assigned to different regions that would handle things like partner services, day-to-day operations, facilities management, and so forth, and then provide services like ES training, skills workshops, and so forth. And again, those are positions that we would need to fill, and so forth. And then, of course, the state already has funds set aside through the governor's set aside funds and through our administrative funds to do some of the administrative and oversight functions like policy development, support the state workforce board, equal opportunity monitoring, and so forth. And those positions would remain in place. We would also utilize a larger team of individuals that would help with fiscal activities, grants management, contract, and so forth. And then, of course, the state would also utilize its network of shared services, including things like HR, IT, finance, legal, and of sort. Last group of concerns here, there were a lot of comments that talked about not really having the public and local workforce development boards and elected officials and the general public not really having an opportunity to express themselves. We did honor the 30-day public comment period. And then we also, again, implemented those stakeholder engagement events that will continue even after today. In addition to that, again, we wanted to, and I explained this, I think, at our last meeting, but we wanted to make sure that this vision was the vision of the State Workforce Development Board. And so back in January, and even prior to that, in some strategic committee meetings and so forth, we were having these related type conversations about how we need to move forward strategically. But this particular model of the waivers didn't really come up until around January or so. And so the state board tasked us with researching and pulling together some proposals. And then by the time we met in March, we were able to share some of those visions and some of those plans with the general public. And so if there was a wonder why more information wasn't shared, there was some preliminary work and some data and some research that we need to pull together before we rolled it out. But since the March meeting, we have been sharing the information as broadly as possible, and we'll continue to do so. But again, I went over those stats just a little bit earlier. 60 public comments. We will continue to meet with chief elected officials to talk about those business councils and so forth. And then again, continue to gain any feedback about everything that we are proposing. One of the things and one of the requests by some of the elected officials was to really kind of hone in on what the impact would be for planning and development districts and current local workforce development organizations. 8 of our 10 local workforce development areas are ran or operated by planning and development districts, and the other 2 are independent local workforce development boards. And so we asked them to provide some data on the number of positions that this would have an impact on. And as you can see there, each local area provided those numbers. Various positions, some are case managers, some are support staff, things like executive directors, office managers, monitors, accountants, and so forth. But if you look there, direct staff, there are about 86 individuals whose positions are probably mostly funded by WIOA, and then about 11 individuals that are indirect staff that will be impacted by this. Going back to the staffing model that I mentioned earlier, there are several positions that we will need to hire for under Arkansas Workforce Connections. Of course, we wouldn't be able to hire the full almost 100 individuals that will be impacted by this because that's how we're getting our savings to shift funds to direct participants. But we've identified a need for maybe upwards of 30 to 40 individuals that we will need to add on to our current framework in order to carry out this. And so we would hope that we would be able to recruit some talent from the local workforce development areas and them to bring on their experience working in the local workforce development areas over to our team. Again, same function, same mission. These individuals just wouldn't be working for their local entities anymore. They will be state employees who will be assigned to specific regions and to offices, and they will be ambassadors as well for their areas. Just really quick, one of the last slides that we have is talking about the transition plan. And I'm going to throw it back to Angela now for that.
Okay, thank you. So if the waiver package is approved, this is the framework that each local area would go through to transition. The local board director would receive at least a 90-day notification in advance of the sub-award closeout process. We would initiate a targeted scope monitoring review that would include 100% participant case file reviews and work experience site visits. We would do a review of a sample of expenditures and really focus on reconciling all those financial reports for the closeout. Staffing opportunities would be posted and recommendations from local management would be given priority consideration for the vacancies in those areas. All staff, new and existing, would be trained on the updated policies, procedures, and workflows. All the participants would be notified of the service provider transition, including if they were going to have a new case manager assignment. The MOUs and IFAs would be revised to reflect the new situations. All of the monitoring findings would be resolved and the subaward closeout activities would be initiated at that point. So once the subaward closeout process is complete, then any remaining funds at that point would be recaptured back to the state. And I will throw it back to Directors Waits and Thomas to close us out.
Thank you. Just real quick on the transition plan, guys. What we're anticipating what'll happen is that we have a deadline to submit the state plan May the 29th. After the vote today, whether it be for or against things as is, we still have a deadline to submit the state plan by May the 29th. DOL will have 90 days from that date to provide a decision on the plan and the waivers that we have proposed here. If those plans and those waivers are approved as proposed, then we would want to start some type of transition and implementation as early as September of this year. And we're looking at phased approach, as Angela talked about there. We will work with local workforce development boards and elected officials to figure out what that means and who would fall into those phases and so forth. But just giving you a timeline of kind of what may happen next. And again, throughout the summer months, the next few months, we really hope to have some really targeted conversation with local workforce development board staff, the board members themselves, and those elected officials to kind of talk through some of the logistics of this to answer their questions. But I want to yield back to Director Waits now for any final remarks he may have. Definitely want to also say while he's preparing his comments that, we value the work that, has gone on for several years through the local workforce development board. This is not an attack on local control and local workforce development boards and chief elected officials. This is just a model that we feel like works for Arkansas and it works best for Arkansans and those who we serve. And so while we've shown a lot of data on why we need to shift in terms of efficiencies and so forth, again, we do support the work that has gone on. There's been a lot of impact that's been made by local workforce development boards, and we do understand their concerns about how this may impact them, but we hope that we can work together collectively to build a better workforce system that works for Arkansas. And so, again, I know Director Waits is headed to the airport or will be headed to the airport at any second now, but I do want to yield now if there are any remarks that he may have.
Yeah, thanks, Andy and Angela. Appreciate those updates and that thorough, review and information that you provided to the board. I think that there's probably a number of questions that board members may have. So for the, sake of time, Chairman Anderson, I'll yield back to you for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Thank you, Angela and Eddie, for a very thorough of what the answering the concerns that were publicly addressed, and we appreciate that thoroughness. So now that we've heard from the state, we'll use the remaining time of this meeting to have an open discussion of what's being proposed. I'd ask the board to please feel free to share your thoughts and ask questions related to what's been shared by the state and what's been submitted by various stakeholders during the public comment process. So I'll open the floor, and do you have a question?
He gives a question for Mr. Crawford and then Mr. Blaylock.
Okay.
So, and I believe, let me just preface that I fully believe state leadership is acting in nothing but good faith here, and so far I think I'm pretty supportive. I would like to get either more information or more guarantees on some guardrails. I know when Eddie was talking, there were quite a few hope tos, don't foresees, things of that nature. And I 100% believe those are honest comments. My concern would be, being on a regional board prior to being on state board, I know that there's a lot of regional CEOs, and each region's different. We'll call them disengaged, and maybe don't consider this to be a big priority. They're not real educated on a lot of it. I could see maybe an unintended consequence there being a region where CEOs are maybe not good stewards of some of the funds. It's not a big priority. It's not a big day-to-day focus. They have roads to build. They have jails to operate. They have all these other things they're doing. And some of those dollars maybe not being used efficiently to the level they could be if somebody in a leadership role there was more readily engaged. And I could see the state potentially, returning some of those funds to another area that's a better steward of them and more politically well-equipped to navigate some of that stuff. And so some of my concerns, I could see regions underutilizing those and unintentionally leading to a loss of funding in those regions, and then sort of devolving with workforce programs there. So that's one thing I would like to hear a little bit more on, how we plan to make sure, whether that'll be a committee that is dedicated to keeping those relationships and conversations frequently engaged in those communities to make sure that that does not occur. Then the second point was on, again, don't foresee providing services from Little Rock. I could see things, again, unintentionally devolving for that to happen. So with these regional business councils not yet being a thing, and maybe I heard, and I may have misheard, it sounded like maybe the governor's office, state workforce agency, Arkansas Workforce Connections, not sure how those are going to be created. And again, I could see a concern of those individuals, even on the regional business councils. A lot of people like, just kind of rubber stamp appointments. What's the guarantee that we're going to have active members that really understand this system and make sure their region is getting everything that they should out of those? So those are two things I would really like to hear flushed out, or some guarantees put into this, because maybe new leadership comes in 5-10 years and we're under this model, and they maybe it just again devolves, and that was never the intent, but I could very much see that happening without guardrails. So if we could speak to that or have a follow-up to that, if that's too much time for this call, understanding the plan's due the 29th, I'd feel more comfortable if I knew what guardrails again would be in place on those things.
Sure. No, thank you for the question, Mr. Crawford. One thing I can have an immediate response on is that some of this, again, was intentionally written to be abstract so that we could build it together. And so there would be committees of the State Workforce Development Board that will be assigned to specific tracking expenditures and tracking performance and tracking all the things that you mentioned there. That would be one of the things that shifts for the state board. Right now, the state board acts under a certain provision of functions that are designated just for the state workforce board. Local workforce development boards dive deeper into the data, into the budgets, into the everyday program activities. Those functions would have to be absorbed by the state board. And so we would have more committees, we would have more individuals that would be assigned to make sure those guardrails in place. In addition, we really didn't want to build out the business councils and provide too much definition to those without consulting the local elected officials. And so over the next course of 90 days or so, we're hoping that the local workforce development board staff will work with us to schedule those meetings to where we can have some sit downs and they can tell us exactly what they want to see in their areas. And so what composition will look like, what cadence, meeting cadence, and those types of things. We want those to be defined by local elected officials in conjunction with the state board. And so, again, state staff, we purposely tried to stray away from defining that too concretely because we wanted there to be leverage and room to be built.
And one quick point of follow-up is how malleable are those decisions going to be in the future? Could those be overturned by a board vote? Or like right now, the 10 regional boards until recently, we not malleable at all. We had no decision around it. So what sort of guarantee are we going to be able to have in place, or how easily are those changeable in the future to make sure, again, we're keeping good faith investments in these communities as best as humanly possible?
Yeah, really good follow up there. Again, a lot of that will be coordinated through the state workforce, development board and our structure there. And we'll have to kind of piece and develop and define it. So one of the things that Director Wade, Secretary McDonald, and team and I've been talking about just a little bit is making sure we develop some form of charter. And so that charter would describe what happens at those regional business council levels. If those councils make recommendations, those recommendations would go up to the state board, and the state board would need to consider those or have to consider those. However, the charter is written before they make informed decisions about those local workforce development areas. So again, we really want to get the buy-in of local elected officials there, but that charter that we would develop would include all those things and how they should happen.
Okay, thank you. And my last one, and then I'm done here, is the transition plan timeline. I didn't see when we anticipate that to be fulfilled and in place. Do we have any idea how long that transition plan would take place before it's in effect?
Yeah, very good question there. In a previous presentation, we kind of scoped September-ish or December-ish up until July of next year for full implementation. And so beginning in September, we would start with some of those closeout activities and monitoring activities to close out. And then we would also start working even now to start looking at any state legislation that would have to be in place so that at the next session, we could address those things. We don't foresee, and I keep saying that just kind of as maybe a filler, but we don't foresee many things that would need to go before the legislature, the General Assembly. But we do know that there's language in legislation now that speaks specifically about local workforce development boards in our current structure. And so we would have to address those. We would have to address the board composition and everything that we're talking about today. But all those steps would be done up until the time the waivers were approved, up until July of 2027. And again, another important point that I'll point out is that the waivers and the approval of the waivers just initiates the clock. And so we don't anticipate that anything will happen overnight. A lot of these things won't be in place on day one. They will have to happen in phases, and they will have to be a part of that year-long or 9 months or so long implementation and transition plan.
And I assume the board will be presented with this charter that you've referenced for review, approval, and dissecting it and all of that stuff as well, or who's over implementing that, coming up with it and approving it?
Yes, sir. So ultimately, first phase would be consulting with chief elected officials because it's specific to their areas. And then next phase would be the state board, maybe building an ad hoc committee that would do that and you guys would approve it. And so, of course, the state will provide technical assistance and support where needed for any regulations, rules, those types of things too. But we see this being responsibility of the state board and ownership being on the state board with the state workforce agency support.
Okay. Yeah. Closing comment is just I really, really hope everybody that has a vested interest in the regional boards is very active regardless of which way this decision goes. And when it comes down to those charters, I think that's going to be hugely, hugely important. So, and we'll need everybody to make sure that everybody's protected, taken care of, invested in correctly, appropriately, et cetera. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just one final comment before I switch over to Mr. Blaylock. Just as a reminder, many of our team come from local workforce development areas. We were raised, we were born. We are hometown people. I'm Southeast Arkansas is where I spent most of my career and lived and so forth. And so when we're having these conversations at the state level, those thoughts, those experiences are never abandoned. And so I appreciate the fact that we received a lot of comments that talked about, hey, our region is unique. We want to make sure we're protecting that. We want to make sure that those things are still being considered. But we do assure you that I tease Cody all the time. He always talks about Western Arkansas and Fort Smith because that's where he's from, and you're giving a thumbs up as well. And so just across the state and across our team and across the state board, you have individuals from those regions that I assure you won't let their areas go lacking. Mr. Blaylock.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. I just wanted to share my observations as I read through the comments. I will say that several of these, we saw what I think was a lot of copy and pasting that I don't think that makes it any less sincere. I think there's a significant lobby from North Central Arkansas.
Just 1 second.
And
okay, we can try again.
Okay. And so one of the resounding themes was concern that there was going to be interruption in service provision. I think we've addressed that. I think with the increase in income, we're going to see increased provision into the rural areas, as you've already stated. So it looks like the major impact is to existing boards. We're not going to continue to do business the way we're doing business right now. So that's the impact. Services are still going to be provided as they are currently, possibly even enhanced. I think we expect them to be enhanced. And the only really thing I want to say that really is an action for, I think, the state board going forward, or regional board going forward, and the regional advisory councils, is that they consider barriers. I'd say number one barrier, transportation. That I saw that over and over again. So I think that's an action for them to go and solve. But I do want to be vocal about it. And childcare would be the next one. But I would love to see us really attack one of these problems that I think we've been talking about since I came on the board several years ago. But the concern about local influence, local control, and solving problems with local businesses, the regional advisory councils address this problem. So I'm in full support of this move, and I just wanted to voice my reasons why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blaylock. Just a couple of comments, just kind of in response to that. And again, thank you for those comments. Very good observations there. One of the things that I'll say, and this is not I don't know, and I don't know, this is nothing negative towards, those officials in those local workforce development areas now, or those local workforce development board members, but, the state is proposing something that's going to be a model, again, that pumps more money into direct services and so forth. And we've known for, several years that, efficiencies and duplication and overhead and those types of things have been, an issue. And I'll say this, the chief elected officials and local workforce development boards have had the authority up until now, and even currently, to come up with their own solutions and own plans to maybe consolidate and to either build different staffing structures or to build their own solutions for addressing some of those things like operating expenses and strategies and so forth. And so what we're doing now is a almost emergent type action that addresses what hasn't been done so far by those who have been in charge and have had those authorities so forth. So I don't say that negatively, but I do think it's important to point out that local elected officials and local workforce development boards have had the authority all all this time to come up with solutions for consolidation, whether that means merging areas or to reshape themselves and so forth. And up until this point, they haven't done so. And so this is what we're proposing based off the flexibilities that we're given now. Ms. Lawrence.
I think Karen is that Karen at the bottom? Karen, do you have your hand up?
Looks like Mr. Lawrence is next.
Oh, okay.
I
Candace?
do, but I can yield to Karen too and go after. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I think everyone can get their turn. Just a couple of things. So obviously to do my due diligence, I contacted, with my position in business, I do have an association that has members that would be affected by this, particularly planning and development districts. And I just called several of them just to get their opinions and see, the down and dirty, what their opposition to this is. And the one thing I did want to bring up, just to see if we can get some clarification on, is that many times they would say the metric that you saw at the board meeting of our operating cost was not entirely accurate. That sometimes what was counted as operating expenses was actually programming costs. One specific example that was given to me was helping someone with their resume. That's a programming cost, but yet it was shown as operating costs, thereby making it appear as if they were less efficient than they were. And so I just wanted to bring that concern up to see if, I really I don't even know what the response would be to it, but just wanted to see, that number that was presented on how efficient they were, how you came to that number, and whether that was an apples to apples comparison. If everyone's entering numbers the same way, the information I was given from different districts was that the program, and forgive me for not knowing the name of it, I think it started with an A axis.
AWIS.
There we go. I was that maybe that it wasn't the same reporting for each area. And so that's just my concern. Just wanted to bring that to the attention and see if I can get some clarity on that. Thank you for taking my comment.
Absolutely. Great observations there and a great concern. We do want to be fair in the process. I do know that, and Angela, I'll tag you in just any second now, but I do know that this was something that we addressed when we met with local workforce development boards a little bit after the March meeting. A lot of them asked us to go back and check those numbers and to reconcile those numbers. We did see a pivot or a shift of maybe 1 or 2 percentages in different ways when we reran those numbers and presented them on today. And again, just FYI before I forget, we will be sending out all the data, that we shared today immediately after this services. But I want to yield to Angela for more insight on how we derived those numbers.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. The line that we drew between operating expenses versus non-operating expenses, anything that went directly to a participant, so their training cost, supportive service amounts, wages that they were paid in work experience, anything like that was counted not as an operating cost. So I think what their concern is that like staffing wages, like career advisor wages, that staff cost was counted as an operating cost. And it's not, we weren't saying that those were only administrative expenses, which is, a term you hear in the WIOA world, administrative versus program. That's not what we were saying. It's just, you can staff up where your staff have a very low caseload and you're spending the money, but you're not getting the bang for the buck. So we do acknowledge that there are some program costs in that, but it's really how efficiently can you serve your participants, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Angela.
Randy?
Well, Karen is I'm having technical difficulty over here. I'm kind of like Candace. I'm in a situation after 30 plus years, you can imagine how many of our employers, and Eddie and I have already talked about this. One, I was on 3 local boards, now I'm just on 2. So from the local boards, from the employers, what is the issue? And I'll tell you the same thing I told Eddie. I would talk to one group and you get these numbers and what we do, what we could do, what we couldn't do. And then you go to the March meeting, you get these numbers. This is what the locals could do, what they couldn't do. And this is now what the state can do if we get rid of the locals. So I told him, I said, I still to this day, and I have read every letter, every comment, and have all, I honestly cannot tell you that I'm either for or against this, because depending on who you're talking to, I feel like I'm having two different conversations. And back to Miles's comment, we don't intend on, we hope that it won't. Well, hopes and dreams sometimes ends up in a very precarious situation. Something to this extent in the business world that I live in is a 3 to 5 year project. Not announcing it in March, voting on it, and then having the meeting today to say, yes, we're ready to move forward with it. There's just so many unanswered questions. And if you read these letters, some of them are from employers, some of them for the locals. And if you go to the locals and talk to them, just like today, I'll use today's meeting as a prime example. I would have loved to have the data that was shared during this meeting before we had the meeting, because you can't look at, okay, here's the plan and make an informed decision. That's my struggle. It's not having the data, not having enough time to process it. And even after the 30-day time period, I'm still getting, this one's in Florida and this one's in Washington State. Where's the true pivot point for all of this? So that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, and really important, insight that you bring out, really good points there. I think the thing that we do have today, while a lot of this proposal is just that, it's a proposal and it's a plan, and it's something that Arkansas hasn't done yet, and so there won't be, in my opinion, there won't be a lot of the concrete answers that all of us want. What we do have today, though, are the data, or is the data that shows the impact that we've made so far over the years. We do have the number of participants that we have served. We do have the funds that are self-reported by local workforce development boards. And I think those are the things that help us to make an informed decision on the way we should move forward. Everything else that we're building now is just that. It's a process. It's us building it collectively to create a new system that might work. We do have, again, today, declining numbers of participants that are served, while individual transactions and expenditures are going up that are operating costs and not going directly to participant services. To Angela's point earlier, we do acknowledge that some of those costs are necessary costs. I will, down a hill and say, as a former case manager and a former local workforce development board director, those services are necessary to get someone ready for training and supportive services. However, there are also a lot of costs wielding those that aren't those costs. And so, again, these are numbers that we've vetted. These are criteria and these are categories that have been defined by DOL, and they're just the way we report it. And so we're happy to provide any deeper analysis on those numbers and that data, but we are confident that what we've shared to this point are real, true impact numbers. And guys, again, I said it differently. I said it as well with Mr. Crawford, but you'll have to forgive some of my passive language, the hopes and foresee. I just say those words as fillers sometimes, but we have put in the work to really kind of research and analyze these things, and we're happy to dive as deep as possible with this information.
So what in this plan increases the participants?
Shifting the costs that we've spent on overhead, staffing, infrastructure costs that may not be necessary, those shifts, and what we're projecting is going to save about $6 million, and those funds can be shifted towards the.
So do we have a big long list of participants that we were unable to serve because we didn't have the money?
So no, we have not pulled that information together. We would have to pull that from the local workforce development boards, but we are aware of circumstances where we've been contacted on the state with complaints because individuals were either placed on waiting lists or were told by local workforce development areas that they could not serve them. And I will qualify all that by saying is that some of this is not the local workforce development board's fault. They receive a portion of the funds that come to the state, and they have to take those portion of funds and then divvy them out based on all the factors that they have to have in place. As a state and as the federal agency DOL, there are certain things that we require them and positions that we require them to have in place that they can't get around. So in defense of the local workforce development boards, there are some items that they can't get around. And for that reason, we don't blame the or if there's blame at all, we don't blame the local workforce development board for some of their inefficiencies. It's the structure itself that creates this duplication and inefficiency, and that's why we want to address it and get it moved.
I don't know who's in charge of the meeting, but there's several people waiting in the lobby. Just an FYI. Somebody just took care of it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I think Randy Henderson had his hand up. Randy.
And
were you on?
also Mayor Bowman, I think, was also had a comment as
Okay.
well.
Mayor, if you're
Yes,
ready,
sir.
go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me, Chairman?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yes, sir,
Mayor.
we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm traveling back to Northeast. I got getting bad reception. The one comment I have is, I know we talked a lot about business just from an industry standpoint. When I think about this proposal,
I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson, you're having
I think
it
about
sounds like you have a bad
possibility of
connection.
alignment. 'Cause from an industry perspective, there's a lot of hiring service.
Randy, you're breaking up. We can't really hear you. Sorry. You want to try to dial back in, or Mayor Bowman?
Yes, sir, Chairman. I guess if we can move to Mayor Bowman and then come back to Mr. Henderson.
Yes, I think that is.
Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
First, I want to go ahead and get Mr. Henderson if you need to. Okay. Listen, I was trying to get in on the meeting. Tried to call in and kick me off 4 times, so I did not make the roll call, but I've been here, so I want to be kind of present. And part of this plan is I'm proof the virtual part is not for everybody. We're not all great at computers. So part of this plan has got some issues, and our area is a really good district. They do a great job. I realize you may have some that's not as good, but with my experience as mayor, when you get this much negative comments, you probably need to go back and address them that a little bit. I really haven't, like the lady before, a lot of it gets thrown at us pretty quick. We don't have much time to look it over. And the March meeting was a special call meeting. I couldn't get to that one. And, but after looking it all over and seeing the comments, we have a lot of issues with this program. And in the business I have, we have had a lot of customers that have centralized their buying, their operations. It never goes as well because they're just no two areas are alike. What's in Southeast Arkansas is not what you need in Northwest Arkansas, and vice versa. And that is the biggest worry I have with this plan. It seems like it's kind of quick. A lot of things are put on the table before we ever get to see them, and it's hard to digest all of it. And so, like I say, I tried to get in, tried to call. A little late, apologize for that, but I have been looking this over for several weeks, been getting a lot of comments from it. And I have a lot of concerns about it. And I know we're getting pressure from the feds, from the federal government, but this is about local people. And our area is very well served. Our businesses like what we have a really great area up here. And some things I don't see you can improve on it. If we have areas in the state that needs addressing, let's address them. But let's not just throw everything in the one pile until we get it addressed. And by looking at the comments, I'm not the only one that feels that way. And so with that, I'll be quiet, but I want to get that on the record that sometimes when you lose that local field, when you can't tell somebody you know, and say, this is what I need, you lose a lot. And sometimes you just need to answer just in a little bit. Don't need to wait a week for it to go to Little Rock and come back or go through all this stuff. And by looking at the plan today, with all these other people you're going to have for administrations and people going from place to place, we're going to be out some money doing that too. And so I see a lot of overlap or redoing what we've already got. And my issue with it is it seems like an awful lot pretty quick. And if we have areas that are working really well, I hate to see us mess that up because they do a great job. And I'll be quiet on that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Randy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, hopefully I got better signal now. I was just gonna say, when we think about return on investment, and to the mayor's point, he's spot on. You know, there are some areas that's doing significantly well, and there's others that not so well. But holistically, when we look at this proposal, what I think about industry. I think about the disconnects that we have. You know, and if things were really great, I think that we wouldn't be working aggressively with hiring services. We actually have a service that's called workforce centers. I think that, you know, trying something different don't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
Okay, are there any other comments? Dr. Miles?
Of course. So I just in closing, I just want to say that since I've been on this board, I think Chief Workforce Officer Mike Rogers, his very first meeting talking to the board, he talked about how this board has failed and how he's been on this board. When I was on the Western Arkansas Regional Board, I experienced frustrations at every single meeting I was at. When I got the appointment to the state board, when Chad was still the executive director, so that's how far back this goes, I'm unfortunately on a hot mic throwing a tantrum about the same frustrations. Because it's no secret. You talk to any board, again, since I've been in workforce since 2015, everybody has been extremely frustrated with the system and the constraints that have been placed on us. What we're doing seems like an overhaul and it seems fast. I understand the hesitancies, I understand the fears and the concerns. I also think we have an opportunity to do something that is striking to the heart of these in a bold move, these frustrations that have just been echoed for the 10 plus years that I've been on boards. And the longer I marinate on that, the more excited and hopeful I get, but with the same cautious optimism of the guardrails and the charters and all that. So I fully support this. I think it's going to be amazing that we have this opportunity to overhaul a system that everybody has critiqued and complained about the entire decade plus I've been involved in this. So I see opportunity, I think is way bigger than even we can really realize right now with the efficiency that we'll be able to gain, the increased services, assuming we really have those charters and those regional business councils in place. Those have to be a priority and a focus. And I know we'll do that well. But I just want to say I believe this is an opportunity that we have not had before. Workforce does not change. If it does, it changes inches, not miles at a time. We've known we're miles behind in workforce development. I mean, US wise, just look at all the trends. We know we have to make big changes. So I do believe this is big. I do believe this is bold. I think the leadership from the state has been in place, from Mike to Secretary McDonald to Cody. I believe this has been going this way so that the leadership is in place. They're competent. They have a vision. So I'm excited about this. I see the future. I certainly see how it could also go badly, but I do believe we have the leadership that's capable of making a really, really special change in the state of Arkansas. So I just wanted to close with that. And I give you guys all the props for all the work. I know this is not easy decisions, a lot of work, short time frames. To your point, we do have some time to hammer down and have more discussions to fine tune a lot of this. I will be as absolutely involved in all of those as I am able to be and allowed to be. And I think most of us on the board probably will as well. So I am excited. I am optimistic, and I know a lot more work is going to go into play into the future than has already gone. But I think we're all up for the challenge. So I just wanted to say that before we signed off in the open comment there.
Okay, I think somebody else has their hand up.
Judge Ellison and then Ms. Osh.
Yeah, I just want to make my comments pretty short, but we've had a lot of years of data that we've looked at over time, and we haven't made bold changes before. And well, I won't say none, we have made some, but I think it's time to try something. And I know, to address the mayor's comment about the number of comments we had, a lot of those were directed comments and people that didn't really know what they were for or against, except because this does affect people and it affects some people's jobs. And I'm sympathetic to all of that, but I got in government to make things more efficient and to do things better. And this may not be better, but it's different. And we've got a lot of years of data that we've all looked at. And it's been a bit disappointing to me, some of it. And so I'm willing to go forward with it and see if we can't get things streamlined, a little more efficient, and do better. And if it doesn't work, then we have opportunities to change again.
Chairman Anderson, this is Becky Odd. I truly do understand where all the local boards are coming from, because I'm from a rural area. But I did have the opportunity this past year to work on our strategic goals, and we had people from all over the state. And what was unique about working with that group is we were focused on the same thing, looking for consistency, how we were all having the same issues, but we agreed upon moving forward with these goals and objectives, who's going to be responsible for them. And I know some of those will have to be looked at again. But I look at this as, let's look at Arkansas. We're one. We're all one, Arkansas. And by doing this, we are allowing our local boards to concentrate more on working with the people directly. They're not going to have to, if I understand correctly, we're going to have people at the state that are going to be handling some of those accountabilities and accounting type things, but they're all still going to be funded like they have been in the past. And yes, there's going to be times where I know certain areas may need more employees for new places coming in, but hopefully as we do this, we will see our whole state economically developing. I'm seeing the Southwest developing, which we haven't in a long time, but we are. I see Northwest, I see Central, I see Northeast. And, that's my big thing, because I'm a component of Arkansas. And for us all to be successful, we will see that divided out throughout. But I do see, I'm hoping that our local boards can see that they can concentrate on working with the people and getting them enrolled. And let's help them, because we've got so many that need it. That's my only comment.
Ms. Becky, I'll say this real quick if I can, Chairman. Depending on how, the vote goes and the approval from DOL, we would still want to kind of keep our relationships with planning and development districts. Planning and development districts serve a vital role, in communities with economic development, community development, and everything that they do. Back when they were established back in, the 1960s, I think Governor Rockefeller set them up. I mean, they had a strategic vision to make sure that they were, the voice and providing those supports to county judges and mayors and municipalities and so forth. And so we would still want to keep some form of close relationship with planning and development districts to make sure that the overall economic health of all those regions were still in place. We would pull out the workforce development piece, of course, but we would still partner with them on what the big picture looks like. And so this for us is not a separation, or this shouldn't be a divide for us. There's still going to be opportunity for us to still work together.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I appreciate the board's hearty discussion on this matter. If there's no other discussion at this point in time, I'll entertain a motion to move forward with a voice roll call vote in which each board member's name will be called to cast a vote for or against the approval of the WIOA combined state plan for fiscal year 26 and 27 modifications inclusive of waiver requests to DOL. So at this point in time, we're making a motion to have a roll call vote. Do I hear a motion?
I move we conduct the roll call vote.
Okay. Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second by Kelly Sharp.
Motion's been made and seconded. Okay, staff, will you please assist me with tabulating the votes as I call each member's name to affirm, for, or against? And as a reminder, in accordance with this board's bylaws, Article 4, Section 3, each member of the board shall have one vote. Proxy voting is permitted for representatives of the governor or agency directors who have provided written notification of their proxy to the state staff in accordance with the board bylaws. So we'll begin with the governmental and state agency board members and conclude with the members who occupy the non-state governmental seats. So I'm going to call the names and you'll say either for or against. Governor Sarah Sanders.
In favor.
Commissioner Joe Baxter. Commissioner Joe Baxter.
Chairman, I don't think he's joined, and I don't think he submitted I know he didn't submit a proxy.
Okay. Dr. Trina Miles.
For.
Mr. Clint O'Neill. Mr. Cody Waits. Dr. Ken Warden. Mr. Nathan Winter.
In favor.
Mr. Lynn Blaylock.
In favor.
Mayor Ray Bowman.
Against.
Ms. Karen Bashirs.
Against.
Mr. Aaron Chastain. Dr. Terry Cox Meadows. Mr. Miles Crawford.
In favor.
Judge Brandon Ellison.
In favor.
Mr. William French. Mr. Randy Henderson. Randy. Ms. Rebecca Ives.
In favor.
Ms. Candace Lawrence.
For.
Mr. Brian Marsh. Mr. George Nunley. Ms. Latanya Robinson. Mr. Barry Sellers.
For.
Mr. Kelly Sharp.
Against.
Mr. Timothy Thorne.
In favor.
And Chairman, there were a couple of people that may still be on but may have missed their name. Mr. Cody Waits, Dr. Ken Warden, and Mr. Randy Henderson. If they are still here, we would want to get them on record.
Yes.
This is Cody. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Warden. Randy. I know Randy's had some issues with his connection. Okay. Staff, did it?
Chairman, of those who are voted, you have 12 for and 3 against.
Okay. So the motion passes. So we go forward. I know this is a tough meeting for everybody, but I appreciate everybody's comments and your honesty and your integrity. And I think going forward, we as a board, we're going to continue to do great things. And I appreciate everybody being on the board. With that, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but Dr. Childers is going to retire at the end of June. And I'd like to thank her for the many years of service to the Arkansas Workforce Board, to her leadership in serving as Director of Arkansas Workforce Development Services, and also the Department of Career Education. And more to follow on that. We'd like to recognize her in a more appropriate way, but I just wanted to say that Dr. Childers, it's been a pleasure working with her and with you, and you're really a professional, and I've learned a lot, and I'm gonna really miss you. So more to come on that, but we know that you'll go on to bigger and better things, and we would look forward to celebrating your service when we get a chance. This concludes today's business. Calendar invitation will be sent out with the date of our next meeting. And at that point in time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Kelly Sharp.
Second, Karen Shears.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 I see where Ken Warden did on the chat. He voted in favor. Y'all didn't see it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly,
We'll
go.
add that to the record.
Motion passes. Kelly, go celebrate your wife's 36 years celebration at school. She's retiring today. So congratulations, Kelly, for you and your wife. That concludes
you.
today's meeting. Thanks again for everybody, your patience, your attendance. Hope you have a great Memorial Day. Just remember what Memorial Day is about. Thanks.
Dr. Childers, you are going to be
Yes.
greatly missed by all.
Oh,
You've been a
thank
great
you.
asset to Arkansas, and you will be missed.
Thank you so much. I hope that our paths cross.
Oh, I'm sure it will. You're not going to get out of workforce altogether.
Oh,
There's
no,
no
I'm
way.
not. I'm not.